Well, thank you very much for your kindness and your warmth and friendship and your willingness to be communicated with regarding this extraordinary material. I have to say, after being in the audience 2 days, watching JC's presentation of the comparisons between the material in the alien interview transcripts and the teachings of Ramtha, that there are, of course, many, many extraordinary coincidences, which may not be so coincidental, I don't know. That's for each individual to decide. Since I received the information that was published in this book, I've been on my own personal journey of investigation and an attempt to understand for myself, just as you are attempting to understand for yourselves, the truths that might lead you to personal freedom and spiritual emancipation or escape from the prison planet, as it were. Since the book was published about, 7 years ago, I've received emails from people all over the world, and typically they say several things. One of the things people seem to comment about uniformly is that I don't know whether or not any of this information is true. It seems kind of strange, to say the least, which is what I thought when I got it. But I have this feeling, I have this visceral gut feeling. I kind of remember something that sounds like this. And so to that degree, the material in the book has kind of taken on a life of its own. When I published the book, at the request of the nurse who sent me the transcripts and letters explaining why she sent it to me and what the contents were, she asked me to publish the material in any way I felt appropriate, either as a work of fiction or nonfiction. So I spent at least 6 months kind of agonizing over what I should do with it. I mean, this is top secret information, and oh my God, the CIA is going to come and take me away, what have you. So I didn't reveal the fact that I had received this information to anyone for that reason, because I was frightened by it, frankly. And I'll be the first one to admit that I'm a coward. I'm proud of it. Don't really want to be shot in the head or abducted or arrested or what have you. So after considering all that, I decided to do my own investigation and inspection of the material line by line in the nurse's letters, as well as the notes that she wrote, partly in hand and partly typewritten, that she had inserted between the pages of the interview transcripts, which were typewritten and seemed to be quite authentic to me. I'm no expert. But I really wasn't willing to hand the material to somebody else who is an expert to side-check it because of my personal paranoia about being in possession of this material. So instead, what I did was I went through on the internet, best I could, and checked out all of the information in the letters and the transcripts and so forth to see if I could verify the factuality of the information in the interview transcripts for myself, first of all, before I decided what to do with it. So I spent a good deal of time doing that, living on Wikipedia primarily for several months. That's the most common and accessible source of encyclopedic information regarding most things. Not necessarily completely reliable source of information, because who knows who's typing on Wikipedia. In the event that I was not able to verify certain parts of the information in the transcripts, I went to other websites, keyword searches and so forth, wherever I could find the information. So what I ended up doing was deciding to publish the material in the book exactly as I received it, in every detail, and added the footnotes at the end as end notes by way of explanation. And so everything that you're reading in the book is exactly identically to the letter, except for formatting. Of course, it had to be retyped manually and formatted and so forth. And then with the addition of the footnotes, which I added. So everything that you're reading and everything you know about the alien interview is everything I know. So if you've read this book, you know everything I know. I don't know anything about anything that isn't in the pages of this book. So a lot of times people say, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And what do you know? And I go, read the book. I didn't write it. I'm a messenger here. I'm like the mailman. So when the mailman comes to your door and says, you know, here's a book, you don't worship the mailman. Hopefully, I hope you don't. I don't worship my mailman. You don't worship the mailman. You don't bow down and say, "Oh, Holy One." Oh, Jesus. Give me a break. So, just want to preface my remarks by saying that I'm a mailman. I'm a messenger. I'm just purveying this to you exactly as I received it, as to the best of my ability to completely, thoroughly duplicate it down to the last letter, with the exception of the footnotes that I added, which anybody can discover for themselves if you do a keyword search or you go on Wikipedia. And as much as possible in the footnotes, I try to cite the source of the information from which the material came, the exact URL or website address or what have you, so that each individual who reads it can verify for themselves, and which is the whole point. I mean, if this for you, like it is for me, the beginning of a personal journey of investigation as to who we really are, where we came from, how we got here, who brought us here, so on and so forth, and how, more importantly, how we emancipate ourselves, or how we regain our lost memories, abilities, identities as individual ISBs, then we all share in that common journey. If you're an inhabitant of planet Earth, you are an alien. So, how many, has everyone read this book? Yeah, okay. So, as you discovered in the book, if you're living on planet Earth or anywhere near planet Earth, whether with a body or without a body, according to what Errol says in the interview, you were brought here from someplace else, some other galactic system, planetary system, dimensional plane of existence, whatever, but principally from planets or star systems that are part of what was and still is to some degree referred to as the Old Empire, which is a confederation of planets and galaxies and so forth under the control of a kind of a central government, so to speak. And for whatever reasons, that central government authority decided to get rid of a lot of unwanted baggage in their estimation. The Errol refers to us as untouchables, and as undesirable beings of this governmental system, of this intergalactic confederation, we're deemed to be unwanted. And not because there's anything wrong with us, principally because there isn't anything wrong with us. But there's a lot wrong with them. So that's an important distinction to make. Just because you're on a quote prison planet doesn't mean you're worthy of or deserving of being a prison inmate. However, Errol does say that the population she describes, as you've read, of the details of the makeup of the inmate population on planet Earth, which consists of a variety of individuals, including real criminals, you know, irremediable, you know, psychopathic axe murderers, sexual perverts, thieves on a very high order of magnitude, military opponents to the old empire, political opponents, revolutionaries, but it also includes a lot of people, for probably for the most part, who are artists, geniuses, creators, inventors, all of whom are considered undesirable because they're not willing to bend and mold themselves to the robotic nature of a totalitarian government that really only wants obedience and a slave-like response to whatever the command is of the government, which is to go to work, pay your taxes, serve your time in the army, do as you're told, be quiet, don't ask any questions, and as long as you behave yourself within the context of those dictates of the government, then you're considered a good citizen. And that sounds really familiar to me, actually. You know, there's a lot about planet Earth that sounds, you know, as Jay-Z and many other wise people have said in the past, as it is above, so it is below. The macrocosm is a reflection of the microcosm and vice versa. So certainly Earth and its population and behaviors and civilizations and so forth are probably in many ways a reflection of the old empire civilization, and that does seem to be occurring more and more recently, in my opinion, in this country and around the world. When I was thinking about making this presentation, I thought probably everyone who will be listening to the presentation will have already read the book. So as I said, you know everything that I know about it. So rather than me standing up here and telling you what's in the book, I would encourage you to read the book as I have many, many, many times and study the details of it and the footnotes and look up verify for yourself whether what's true or not true. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not true, in my opinion, and I could really care less what anyone's opinion is about it. I have one opinion. Every 8.2 billion people on this planet have an opinion, and that's as it should be. We all have to have our own opinion because we're all on our own individual journey of discovery and fulfillment, whatever that means for you. So what I did is I prepared a PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go back to the booth, and from my laptop, I'm going to do the PowerPoint presentation myself because I'm the only one that can figure it out because I created it and nobody else understands it, and I'm not sure if I understand it. So, but they're going to show it on the screens here. This is the first slide from the screen. So let's begin the PowerPoint now, and as they say in show business, dim the lights.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection. Russia has demanded UN action to get all foreign military personnel out of Greece. Southern soft coal operators have not yet reached agreement with John L. Lewis, but the rest of the soft coal industry has resumed production. The House of Representatives has passed the tax reduction bill by more than the two-thirds which would be required to override a veto. Headline edition will bring you special reports and interviews in a moment.
The American Broadcasting Company and affiliated stations present Headline Edition with Taylor Grant. From all over the world, wherever the day's headlines are made, Headline Edition brings you accurate, timely reports on the news behind those headlines, plus informative in-person interviews with the men and women who made the headlines today. Today's edition presents a roundup of the latest developments in the finding of a flying disc, an eyewitness report of today's significant action in the UN Security Council. Ohio Congressman Thomas A. Jenkins commenting on today's House action on tax legislation, a special report on the status of soft coal negotiations, and the details of today's All-Star baseball game reported from Chicago. Stay in step with history in the making. Stay tuned to Headline Edition. And now, here's Taylor Grant.
Late this afternoon, a bulletin from New Mexico suggested that the widely publicized mystery of the flying saucers may soon be solved. Army Air Force officers reported that one of the strange discs had been found and inspected sometime last week. Our correspondents in Los Angeles and Chicago have been in contact with Army officials endeavoring to obtain all possible late information. Joe Wilson reports to us now from Chicago.
The Army may be getting to the bottom of all this talk about the so-called flying saucers. As a matter of fact, the 509th Atomic Bomb Group headquarters at Roswell, New Mexico, reports that it has received one of the discs which landed on a ranch outside Roswell. The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brizell was the man who discovered the saucer. Colonel William Blanchard of the Roswell Air Base refuses to give details of what the flying disc looks like. In Fort Worth, Texas, where the object was first sent, Brigadier General Roger Ramey says that it is being shipped by air to the AAF Research Center at Wright Field, Ohio. A few moments ago, I talked to officials at Wright Field, and they declared that they expect the so-called flying saucer to be delivered there, but that it hasn't arrived as yet. In the meantime, General Ramey describes the object as being of flimsy construction, almost like a box type. He says that it was so battered that he was unable to determine whether it had a disc form, and he does not indicate its size. Ramey says that so far as can be determined, no one saw the object in the air, and he describes it as being made of some sort of tinfoil. Other Army officials say that further information indicates that the object had a diameter of about 20 to 25 feet, and that nothing in the apparent construction indicated any capacity for speed, and that there was no evidence of a power plant. The disc also appeared too flimsy to carry a man. Now, back to Taylor Grant in New York.
There was important activity within the UN Security Council today.
The letter from Mrs. MacElroy, August 12, 2007. Dear Lawrence, I am typing this letter to you on my old Underwood typewriter that I bought after I was discharged from the Army. Somehow it seems like a fitting contrast to the subject of this letter and the documents you will find enclosed in this envelope. The last time I spoke to you was about 8 years ago. During your brief telephone interview with me, you asked me to assist you with the research for the Oz Factors book you were writing, because you suspected that I might know something that would help your investigation into the possibility that extraterrestrial beings may have influenced the history of Earth. When we spoke, I told you that I did not have any information that I could share with you about anything. Since then, I have read your book and found it very interesting and compelling. You are obviously a man who has done his homework and who could understand my own experiences. I've been thinking a lot about your allusion to the old philosopher whom you paraphrased in our phone conversation, "With great power comes great responsibility." Although I don't think power is pertinent in my life or to my reasons for sending you the enclosed documents, you certainly did get me thinking about my responsibility. I have reconsidered my position, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is my realization that you were right. I do have a responsibility to myself, at least. I cannot possibly tell you the personal hell of ethical irresolution and spiritual ambivalence I have endured since 1947. I do not want to keep playing the game of maybe I should have or maybe I shouldn't have through the rest of eternity. Many men have been killed to extinguish the possibility of revealing the knowledge I have helped to withhold from society until now. Only a small handful of people on Earth have seen and heard what I have had the burden of keeping secret for 60 years. All those years I thought that I had been entrusted with a great deal of confidence by the powers that be in our government, although I have often felt that power is greatly misguided, to protect mankind from the certain knowledge that not only do intelligent extraterrestrial life forms exist, but that they have and continue to aggressively monitor and invade the lives of everyone on Earth every day. Therefore, I think the time has come to pass along my secret knowledge to someone I think will understand it, I don't think it would be responsible of me to take the knowledge I have into the silent afterlife, beyond reach or recognition. I think there is a greater good to be served than protecting the vested interests for whom this information is considered a matter of national security, whatever that means, and is therefore justification for making it top secret. Also, I am now 83 years old. I have decided to leave this body, which has outlasted its usefulness to me, using a painless method of self-administered euthanasia. I have a very few months to live, and nothing to fear or lose. So I have moved away from Montana, where my husband and I lived for most of my life, to spend our remaining days in a lovely rented upstairs bedroom in a house in the homeland of my husband's family in County Meath, Ireland. I will die not far from the great mound at Meath and Douth, the fairy mound of darkness. These are sacred cairns, or massive stone structures that were erected about 3,700 BCE and engraved with indecipherable hieroglyphs, about the same time as pyramids and other inexplicable stone monuments were being built all over the earth. I am also not far from the Hill of Tara, that was once the ancient seat of power in Ireland, where 142 kings were said to have reigned in prehistoric and historic times. In ancient Irish religion and mythology, this was the sacred place of dwelling for the gods, and was the entrance to the other world. St. Patrick came to Tara to conquer the ancient religion of the pagans. He may have suppressed the religious practices in the area, but he certainly did not have any impact on the gods who brought these civilizations to earth, as you will discover when you read the documents enclosed. Therefore, this is a fitting location for my departure from this unholy world and final release from the burdens of this life. The crystal-clear perspective of hindsight has revealed a higher purpose to me, assisting the survival of the planet, all living beings and life forms in our galaxy. The status quo of our government establishment has been to protect the people from knowledge of such matters. In fact, the only protection afforded by ignorance and secrecy is to hide the private agenda of those in power to enslave others, and by doing so to disarm every perceived enemy and ally through superstition and stupidity. Therefore, I have enclosed the original and only existing copies of my personal notes and reflections on a matter which I have kept hidden from everyone, even my own family. I have also enclosed my copies of typed transcripts created by the stenographer who transcribed all of my interviews with the alien saucer pilot after each interview was finished. I do not have any copies of the tape recordings that were made of my interview reports. No one, until now, knows that I was able to secretly retain copies of the official interview transcripts. Now I am entrusting these documents to your discretion, to impart to the world in any form or manner you see fit. My only request is that you do so in a way that will not threaten your own life or well-being, if possible. If you were to incorporate these notes of my experiences into a work of fiction, such as a novel, the factual nature of the material could be easily dismissed or discredited by any agency for whom national security is used as a personal shield against scrutiny and justice. In so doing, you could disavow any knowledge of their true origin and claim that it is a fictitious work of your imagination. Whoever said that truth is stranger than fiction was right as rain. For most people, all of this will be unbelievable. Unfortunately, beliefs are not a reliable criteria for reality. Also, I am sure that if you were to show these notes to anyone that would prefer physical, economic, or spiritual slavery over freedom, the subject matter contained in them would seem quite objectionable. If you attempted to publish the documents as a matter of factual reporting in a newspaper or on the evening TV news, they would be rejected out of hand as the work of a kook. The very nature of these documents make them unbelievable and therefore discreditable. Conversely, the release of this information is potentially catastrophic for certain political, religious, and economic vested interests. These documents contain information which is quite relevant to your interest and investigations into alien encounters and paranormal experience. To use your analogy in the Oz Factors book, I can honestly say that the few factual reports that have been made by others about alien influences are only a gentle breeze in the eye of an apocalyptic hurricane swirling around Earth. There really are wizards and wicked witches and flying monkeys in this universe.